Hello, my friends! I am here once again to have a riveting discussion about something that's absolutely the most important thing that's happening in the world right now. That being the soon-ish to release remake of Halo Combat Evolved. Before we get into it, I just want to once again thank everyone for joining our little bubble here. We are a little over 500 strong, which is kind of crazy. We are gathering a lot of momentum, a lot more momentum than I had expected at this point. I figured if I stayed consistent, I'd eventually start getting some attention and get subscribers and viewers and all that good stuff. And somehow the algorithm has been blessing me. Maybe just because this is a nice positive place where we can be excited about the future of Halo that is getting a lot of like-minded people together. Together we can be looking forward to the future, while many other people in the Halo community are very quick to jump on the hate bandwagon. But anyway, the topic today, I briefly mentioned this in the video about Parasite's Wake, specifically about the cover art for that book, but I wanted to go really in depth because around like 11 p.m. a recent night, I was just looking very closely at the assault rifle Master Chief is holding in the remake. And I'm doubling down on my little theory. I think chances are pretty good that I'm going to end up being right on this one at least, but we're going to see. There's no guarantees with this. I'm just connecting the dots that I see, and who knows if this is actually going to amount to anything. Just for starters, let's look at it this way. The assault rifle in the remake looks very distinct. It does not resemble the MA5B at all. If you're not lore savvy, the MA5B is the model of assault rifle that we use in CE. So the question is, why does it look so different beyond the 32 round magazine? To some of you, it might be a very easy answer. It could just be, yeah, they're just changing things for the sake of changing things because Halo Studios. But I don't know. When I look at some of the other weapons, plasma rifle has a very minor change. The pistol looks pretty much identical. There are some minor changes, but it looks like the Halo 1 pistol. We have yet to see the sniper rifle. We don't even know what the new additions to the sandbox are going to look like. But basically, we have two options. The first option is that initial suggestion that Halo Studios is just changing the appearance of the MA5B, and it's a retcon. If you ask me, that's the lazy route. And I'm gonna preface this, especially for folks that are new here. I don't care. Honestly, I don't care one way or the other, whether my theory happens to be correct or if they are just doing retcons. Because to me, it's like, I'm going to continue playing the original Halo 1 after Campaign Evolved comes out. I think this is just fun discussion. That's what this is all about. So, either lazy option, or my theory. So I'm going to kind of take a step back and we're going to just kind of compare the MA5B in the original Halo 1 to the assault rifles through Halo history. We're not going to go into like a crazy video essay kind of thing. We're keeping things nice and lax. And guys, this is 100% unscripted. I have some notes, basically just bullet points, just to make sure I don't skip anything. So, good old Halo 1. When we started there, the MA5B was just the Halo assault rifle. It could be nostalgia, because I've been playing since Halo 1 was the only Halo game. I really think that is my favorite. The thing is an absolute monster of a rifle. The thing is just extremely beefy, and a lot of Halo weapons, even up to this day, if you're to hold it in real life, it's a pretty unwieldy kind of weapon, so especially the MA5B. But, Bungie was initially designing these weapons around the perspective of Master Chief. So you're dealing with a 7-foot-tall super soldier holding this. And for that matter, as they've refined the game throughout the development process and then eventually settled on first person, you're getting most of your viewing of the assault rifle from a first person perspective. So there's a certain size and proportions that are catered for that. So it's not so much what looks natural in the hands of just a standard Marine. Like when you see a Marine fully decked out in his armor, it doesn't look too crazy, but it's a big boy. And then obviously we didn't get to see the assault rifle in Halo 2. that's okay. You know, we got 2 SMGs at the same time. The SMG in Halo 2 was kind of meant to replace the assault rifle. In Halo 1, the AR was just a bullet hose. So in Halo 2, they wanted to make it so a rifle functions like a rifle and not an SMG. When we got around to Halo 3, the assault rifle kind of came back as that iconic silhouette that we know and love. They brought some changes to it. What I really have always loved about Halo is, for the most part, things aren't just changed purely for the sake of being changed and like just saying, oh no, with the better hardware and the better technology, we're able to demonstrate what these things are really supposed to look like. What they have always done, again, for the most part, is designated the different 3D models as like they're different in-world models of weapons. So M85B in Halo 1, M85C in Halo 3. So 32 round mag is like the first obvious change, but you look at it close and it's definitely a more compact, sleeker weapon compared to the M85B. It's got a little bit of longer barrel and all that good stuff. It was kind of naturally refined from that original design. Halo 3 was balanced so well with its golden triangle, so the AR coming back, it really fit its role perfectly, in my opinion. So ODST, nothing changed there. It's still the MA5C. But we did get to see the MA5B in Halo Wars. Technically, yeah, from in-game top-down view, the little guys running around the screen are carrying the MA5B, but that's not the main point I want to make. They deliberately chose to be mindful of continuity and the idea that, at least at that time in Halo lore, the MA5C was like a very new weapon come 2552. I think they have since retconned that, but because they wanted to be in line with Halo 1 and saying, all right, this is taking place before Halo 1, so it should have the rifle from Halo 1. So in the cutscenes, there's multiple times we get to see Sergeant Forge holding an MA5B, we get to see other Marines holding the MA5B, and these cutscenes really demonstrate how massive this thing is. And I really do love that. As far as I can tell, it used the sound from Halo 3, so not one-to-one continuity, but something to think about. Even though the name isn't on the box, 343 was in its infancy back in 2008, 2009. And so at that point in time, 343 was really good about continuity. Again, deliberate choice. We got the MA5B in Halo Wars. However, once we got around to Halo Anniversary, the first trailer was using the model from Halo Reach. There was apparently a point in development where they were thinking about just purely 100% only using Halo Reach assets. And you can see that in the very early gameplay where Master Chief and the Marines are running around with the Halo Reach AR and even the Reach pistol. So very odd looking. By the time it released, we got slightly modified Halo 3 models for the AR and the pistol. The proportions are definitely different. Again, the Halo 3 AR is a bit more compact, so it doesn't have quite as beefy of a profile. They did go in and adjust the ammo counter between the Halo 3 model and what's in Halo Anniversary. So they did get the ammo counter to resemble what the ammo counter looked like in Halo 1 on the MA5B. But it wasn't like a perfect recreation. It is what it is. Then a few years pass, we get Halo 4 and 5. Those are using completely different model. The continuity drives me a little nuts. Master Chief goes to sleep with an MA5C next to him, and then he wakes up and pulls out an MA5D. But video game stuff, you know, a lot of games have it very limited as far as the amount of weapon models that you can have. So it's a budget thing, it's a logistics thing. But so Halo 4 kind of carried on the Halo 3 AR in terms of 32 round mag, but it gave it a lot more range. The balancing was a very different Halo 4. I won't get into the nitty gritty, but Halo 4 made it a lot more user friendly of a rifle. Halo 5 kept some of those properties, but then bumped up the ammo count to 36. I don't know a lot of this stuff from a game design perspective. My assumption is adding an extra 4 rounds is just to make it a little bit easier of a starting weapon, especially for more casual players, but that doesn't really matter right now. We're going to jump ahead a little bit later to Halo Wars 2. With Halo Wars 2, we kind of get to re-enter that level of continuity that early 343 had. You know, after years of having the 343 designs TM, we finally got to have more classic looking designs for kind of everything, at least in terms of what was on the Spirit of Fire. You know, the Spartans look like the Spartans of Halo Wars. The weapons they're using look like Bungie era weapons. And there's a few instances where the assault rifle's there, and once again, they made a deliberate choice for it to be the MA5B. Finally, with Halo Infinite, went back to that Reach design, but as many of you know, in the multiplayer, we got different models that we can use for the assault rifle. One of them came with the Spirit of Fire operation. I think they were calling them operations at that point. Basically, content drop. And this model highly resembles classic Halo 1, Halo 3 AR designs. Like, it looks like the Bungie era AR. You know, it almost looks like a hybrid between multiple designs. They had to model this thing so it would fit over the already existing MA40 assault rifle. So that way, you know, all the animations don't look janky. You're not getting hands just kind of clipping through the 3D model in any place. But so what's interesting, this is a callback to Halo 1. There's a little lore description that comes with that. This thing states, "No pressure, but the mother of all assault rifles has arrived, reforged in the fires of an exploding Halo ring, and quenched on the ichor of 1,000 fallen elites. Feast your eyes on the finest bit of battle rattle to ever grace your dirty paws." Now don't go asking too many questions about ammo capacity this or aim assist that. The only numbers you need to know are 7, 6, and 2. Now get out there and give those Covenant a belly full of lead. So very on-the-nose reference to Halo 1 specifically. So they wanted to have this thing resemble the MA5B, not to mention fitting with the Spirit of Fire. We're dealing with a warship that is lost in space before it ends up on the Ark, and they were last armed up circa 2531. So if you're following me with this, they're often very deliberate about callbacks to the MA5B. If it's literally in the game or if a weapon is meant to just kind of resemble it, they at least do some tweaks and modifications to try to get it to fit that look. But so what's interesting to me is in Campaign Evolved, the gameplay that we got back in October was such a distinct departure from the MA5B. And I was just staring at this thing because if you watched my other video talking about the cover art for Parasite's Wake for that new novel, I was diving into a theory that I had, very hopeful theory, which may or may not be true, hopefully we find out soon, that the cover art was meant to signify what the final designs will look like in Campaign Evolved for the Marines and the Elites and some of the weapons. I hope I'm right still. Obviously, we all want the campaign remake to look as faithful to CE as possible, of course. Because I did that video, I was staring very closely at the assault rifle that our hero on that book cover is holding. And, you know, I was mentioning, it looked very much like the MA5B, and it might look a little bit more compact, so kind of getting into like the MA5C kind of look. But I didn't really compare it to what it looked like in the gameplay that we saw back in October for Campaign Evolved. And honestly, the AR on the cover art looks totally different than the AR in Campaign Evolved. I had forgotten a lot of the details. Upon first watching the gameplay for the remake, I was kind of just like, oh, I think it's the MA5C. You know, I didn't look super close at it. 32 round mag, more compact design. It's like, yeah, that's basically what's going on. Maybe it's a remodel for the MA5B, but we'll see. But anyway, it goes far beyond just kind of slapping a more modern AR design into the remake. Going into like the whole like doom and gloom perspective that the CE remake is just an asset flip. You know, there were people even saying, oh, the assault rifle in this is literally just the assault rifle from Halo Infinite. You know, the MA5 model that I had mentioned from the Spirit of Fire operation. 100% different. Like, they are so different, which means they've made this AR from scratch. So all of the tweaks and changes that they made to it were very, very deliberate. So the question that you have to ask is, why would they make this so deliberately different? There'll only be one of two answers to this. Number one, they are just straight up retconning the MA5B, and Halo Studios is essentially using the remake as the foundation for their take on Halo. You know, 343 had theirs, starting with Halo 4, technically starting with Halo Anniversary, and concluding with Halo Infinite. Halo Studios is completely different leadership, and this might be room for another video to dive into at some point. I'm under the impression that current leaders at Halo Studios just wanted nothing to do with the decisions that the leaders of 343 made. Hence, Halo Infinite getting a skeleton crew and just kind of plugging along while they were quietly working on the remake and whatever else they have going on. So, could just be purely an artistic choice. Much like how Master Chief's armor was just totally different looking in Halo 4. There are some answers/not answers in some of the extended lore, why Chief's armor looks so different. Some people like it, some people don't. I'm not getting into that right now. But you can't deny Halo 4 was a huge departure from an artistic perspective. They made a choice to take their own approach on it. And maybe that's what's happening with Halo Studios. Maybe with the remake, they are saying, we want to have things that are very reminiscent of Bungie, and we're also going to try some things a little bit different. So maybe that's why some of the Forerunner stuff looks different. Maybe that's why there's little tweaks to things here and there. And let's just add a bunch of detail and change up the overall design for the assault rifle just because it's 2026. So it could be as simple as that. I think there's way too much lore that they are still going to hold on to because everything is still canon. That's one of the greatest things about Halo, is pretty much every piece of media is canon. Not a certain live action series, thankfully. We keep things positive here, so we're not going to dive into that rabbit hole. But so, because they keep everything, I don't think that they're just going to all of a sudden say, this is what the MA5B just looks like now. Because the MA5B still exists in multiple games outside of the remake. So, my theory, we're looking at a completely different model. There aren't any specific decals on this weapon that designate it as MA5B. In the gameplay that we already got to see, when reloading on the model, all we can see is it says MA5. Doesn't specifically say MA5B, doesn't say anything to the contrary specifying it as a specific model. But what if this is just going to be considered just MA5? They didn't do the Halo Infinite thing of when you pick up a weapon, it'll say you picked up the MA40 assault rifle or whatever. So if you pick up the assault rifle in this game, it just says picked up assault rifle. So hey, they're staying faithful to the original. You gotta respect that. If I remember correctly, I want to say most of the assault rifles throughout the years would be marked somewhere, their actual designation. But anyway, the big question is why? Why is this a completely different model in a remake of Halo 1? Especially since we have all these other iconic weapons. You know, we have the pistol, the spanker, plasma rifle. All of them are basically just the 2026ified version of what they were in 2001. You know, they have all the fancy bells and whistles, and especially because the game is like a hybrid Unreal 5 Halo Reach based game, because it's going off of that specific Halo engine, they carried over some of the traits. So like the rocket launcher can lock on to aerial vehicles, but we're not seeing like any drastic changes with ammo capacity or anything like that with those weapons. Obviously, we have yet to see a lot of the sandbox. For all we know, the shotgun is going to go from the 12-round magazine tube and drop it down to 6, make it in line with many of the other Halos. But again, we're looking at this and just trying to figure out those changes. So from a gameplay perspective, it's been proposed by a lot of people that most likely this is a balancing thing. Number one, whether it was a mistake or not, in Halo 1, they made the AR a frickin' bullet hose and function more like an SMG or a light machine gun. Hence, Halo 2 replacing it with the SMG. But so, with the remake, you could say that they're just making the assault rifle function like an assault rifle. The big thing is this game is being balanced purely from a single player perspective because there is no PvP in this whatsoever. And so one could ask, why not give us the overpowered assault rifle? Why not give us 60 round mags so we can just, you know, hold the trigger down and wipe out a whole group of flood that's coming in on us? Well, what's being proposed with the whole idea that this is for sandbox balancing is that some of these new weapons are going to kind of fill that bullet hose role, and they wanted to reserve the assault rifle as kind of like your go-to sort of utility weapon. So for all we know, this game will have the SMG in it. That could fill that role, or it could be something a little bit different. It could be that the Sentinel Beam is going to be kind of filling that role. So time will tell, but that's the gameplay reason. At the end of the day, the way the game plays is more important than any lore stuff. However, the guys that are in charge of all these lore variables at Halo Studios have been pretty good about a lot of mental gymnastics on how to make things make sense as the Halo universe gets more and more complex. I could totally see them being like, okay, we need to make it canon somehow, but also keep the MA5B canon. So why not have a completely new weapon? And hey, maybe there'll be something crazy where there's this assault rifle, and then there's like a quote-unquote heavy assault rifle, and the heavy assault rifle is the MA5B. Might make the sandbox a little messy if they do it that way, but who knows? There's another reason why I think that they could be doing this. I mentioned this in that other video. I really think that this thing looks so dramatically different from any other model because this is meant to be the assault rifle going forward. And when I say the assault rifle, like the assault rifle, the capital T. And so my theory is from a branding perspective and kind of a let's soft reboot Halo for the, I guess this is like the third time. This would allow for them to have Master Chief on the cover art for Campaign Evolved and the remake of Halo 2, the remake of Halo 3, maybe even Halo 7, all of them using this exact same model. We're at a point now with the technology where they're kind of future-proofed for a while. You know, we're kind of starting to see those bottlenecks. We're not getting those drastic leaps in visual fidelity. And so this photorealistic assault rifle could just be the assault rifle. But hey, I mean, time will tell. Who knows? I have a little theory on what's going to be happening with the multiplayer component of Halo in the future. It just kind of makes a lot of sense if they are going to be doing campaigns that are just their own entities like this. Multiplayer will likely just be a standalone game and just kind of get content drops over time. So hypothetically, you know, I might do a video going in depth with this, but let's just say if that's something that they do, let's say Campaign Evolved comes out and then 6 months later we get Halo multiplayer, and this might use Campaign Evolved as sort of like the basis. This is the foundation. So we get the assault rifle, TM, and all the other toys that are included in Campaign Evolved, and then probably stuff from various other Halo games. But then like every new campaign entry would essentially introduce more stuff to the sandbox. I'm sure that can be a whole big discussion in itself at some point. But hey, time will tell. I don't necessarily care one way or the other if I'm right on this. I'm just trying to connect all these different dots and see if it actually shapes into something. You know, you look at it from a branding perspective, a lore storytelling perspective, and a gameplay perspective. You look at all those elements and just be like, okay, what makes sense? What might they be doing with this? And hey, all of us Halo fans kind of have our own preferences. Some people are going to play this remake and not even recognize that the assault rifle is just totally different than the MA5B. There's gonna be people like me that are looking at this detail way closer than necessary. Here's the thing, going back to Campaign Evolved specifically, I don't think that many people care about the overall appearance for it. You know, the top comment on the gameplay demo is 32 rounds in the AR is criminal. Criminal in all caps. So people feel very strongly about this. They already said there are going to be literally dozens of skulls in this. And remember, the campaign skulls can sometimes be ways to make the game harder, and sometimes they can be to make the game easier. I think there's going to be a skull in the game that gives you a 60-round mag. I think that is going to be one of those ways that they can give fans a 100%, well, maybe not 100%, but a very, very faithful way of playing Campaign Evolved. So it's like, if you really don't want all of the modern bells and whistles, you know, turn off sprint, make the HUD to be the classic configuration, and give yourself the 60-round mag, and away you go. You know, you're getting something much closer to the original Halo 1. Out of all of this, I have more confidence in the notion that there's going to be a skull for a 60 round mag than anything else. Hopefully find out sooner rather than later what's going on with the release date and what a lot of the visuals in the game will end up looking like when it finally releases. I'm actually excited to use this assault rifle, whether it's 32 rounds or 60 rounds. It's going to be a different experience. It's not going to just be Halo 1. That's going to be a topic for another video. That this game isn't going to be Halo 1. It's its own entity, and that is okay. But anyway, for this topic, that is all I have to say. So let me know what you're thinking about this assault rifle situation, even if you just don't care about it. If this video is just like, wow, you care way too much about a fictional gun. This concludes another video from your pal, the BRO.D.S.T. God bless you all. Christ is King. Bye-bye.